thus be it ever when freemen shall stand.
Well, the year was 1814, third year of the War of 1812, 3 years of troubles. I had strongly opposed my country's declaration of war against Britain, in particular believing that our intention to invade Canada and take our northern neighbor by force to be a part of the United States was immoral, unjust. I held firmly that my country was wrong. Because I believed that, I also believed that the defeats our army had suffered in 3 years of invading Canada, or attempts to invade Canada, were allowed by God as a discipline, a just punishment. Nonetheless, when they were free of the distraction of Mr. Napoleon Bonaparte, and the British brought the war to my own state of Maryland, I took up arms and joined the militia to defend my home and my country. I was at the Battle of Bladensburg, Maryland. That was a battle that we lost in an embarrassing rout. And subsequently, the British marched into Washington City and burned our government buildings and President Madison's White House to the ground. Those flames were visible in Baltimore, 40 miles away. And believe me, we could see them quite distinctly from my home in Georgetown, just 4 miles distant. And there we cowered, not knowing where the British might go next. Such were the events of August 1814. In September, they retreated, and their ships sailed back down the Potomac to Chesapeake Bay. And we learned that they had taken prisoner, as they left, a good friend, Dr. William Beans, Marlborough, Maryland. Unfortunately for Dr. Beans, he was not being held as a prisoner of war and entitled to the rights thereof, but they considered him an Englishman himself, and therefore a traitor to the crown. We did not think the elderly Dr. Beans would survive a voyage to Halifax for his trial, and we were certain that if convicted, he would not survive a hanging. I sought President Madison's permission to intercede on Dr. Beans' behalf, and he sent myself and Mr. John Skinner under a flag of truce from Baltimore to find the British fleet on Chesapeake Bay where Dr. Beans was held. I wrote of these events shortly after to my best friend, Mr. John Randolph. My dear friend, you will be surprised to hear that I have spent 11 days in the British fleet. We went on an endeavor to save poor old Dr. Beans a voyage to Halifax for a trial, an endeavor in which we fortunately succeeded. However, I was informed that neither I nor anyone else in my party would be going to shore any time soon. You see, they detained us until after their attack on Baltimore. You may imagine what a state of anxiety I endured. Baltimore. Sometimes when I remembered it was there that the declaration of this abominable war was received with public rejoicing, I could not feel a hope that they would escape. To make my feelings still more acute, their admiral had intimated to me his fear that the town must be burned, and I am sure that if taken, it would have been given over to plunder. I have reason to believe that such a promise was given to their soldiers. Baltimore was filled with women and children. Well, the fleet reached the Patapsco River and preparations were made for landing their troops. Their admiral went forward to better superintend the attack by water on Fort McHenry, which guarded Baltimore Harbor. I and Mr. Skinner were allowed to return to our own vessel under a guard of British Marines to prevent us from landing. We were permitted to take Dr. Beans with us, and we considered ourselves fortunate in that we could see distinctly from the deck of our vessel the flag flying at Fort McHenry, some miles distant. Mr. Skinner and I remained on deck during the night, watching every shell from the moment it was fired until it fell, and waiting with breathless interest to hear if an explosion followed. But as long as the bombardment continued, it was sufficient proof that our fort held and had not surrendered. Then suddenly it all ceased some time before day. And as we had no communication with any of the enemy's ships, we did not know whether our fort had surrendered or the British attack upon it been abandoned. We paced the deck for the residue of the night in painful suspense, waiting with intense anxiety for the return of day and looking at our watches every few minutes to see how long we must wait for it. And as soon as it dawned, before there was light enough to see objects at a distance, our glasses were turned to the fort, not knowing if we would see there the stars and stripes or the flag of the enemy. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? On the shore dimly seen through the mists of the deep, where the foe's haughty host in dread silence reposes, what is that which the breeze or the towering steep, as it fitfully blows, half conceals, half discloses? Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in full glory reflected, now shines in the stream. 'Tis the Star-Spangled Banner, o'er long mid-wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. And where is that band who so vauntingly swore the havoc of war and the battle's confusion? Our home and our country should leave us no more. Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps' pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, thus be it ever when free men shall stand between their loved home and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must when our cause it is just, and this be our motto: in God is our trust. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. I hope that I will always remember with warmest gratitude that most merciful deliverance. For it seems to have given me a higher idea of the forbearance, long-suffering, and tender mercy of God than I had ever before conceived. I had thought we deserved to lose the Battle of Baltimore, that a just and fair God would allow it. Instead, I found myself rejoicing in a victory most graciously given. For I saw in Baltimore's deliverance a grand example of the mercy of God, who withholds from me the sentence of almighty condemnation I deserve, and gives instead all I want: pardon, peace, and holiness. He does not bid us first to become righteous and then come to him. But he calls us to him as we are, as sinners, to be pardoned for our sins and cleansed from all our iniquities. If God did not so grant mercy with justice is so clearly deserved, Baltimore would not have been spared. And I should never have written the Star Spangled Banner. But he does. And I did. And to that song, I say a happy and hearty happy birthday. Thank you kindly for your attention.
Praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation, and conquer we must when our cause it is just, and this be our motto: in God is our trust, and the Star Spangled Banner in triumph shall